I'm now joined by the head coach of the Mount Pleasant area Vikings, Jason Fazekas, as his team is back in the Class 3A postseason. The Vikings, the number 10 seed, will go against number 7 Freeport area. First off, Jason, I know that you do not take for granted the significance of making the postseason. Kind of came down to the wire for your team and really pretty much everyone in this Class 3A Interstate Conference for the final week to get in. But what was, I guess, the message to the team after you found out you were in the postseason?
Well, you're right. We never take it for granted. I mean, it's certainly where we want to be at the end of the season. We always want to be in that conversation for one of those spots, and it's a really big accomplishment to make it in. So, not much of a message to the kids so far, just to let them know what we're playing. That the plan is going to be the same as usual with our routine. So we'll get in with them tomorrow and kind of get the week started with the kids.
You had to change the plan a little bit on Friday against Elizabeth Forward. You were without Cole Chatfield, your quarterback. But it seemed like you played very competitive for the majority of that game, and then EF kind of pulled away late for a 30-point win. That was probably a little misleading. So what did you like from what you saw against the Warriors?
Well, whenever you're down a starter, any starter, sometimes that makes it just a little bit more difficult, especially when you got a kid like Cole that's out. So, what I've liked about this team from the beginning of the year up until the end of that game on Friday, their effort is really outstanding, and I always say that when you don't have to coach effort, it makes it easier. So we just ran into a really good team, and we were hanging in there. Kids were doing the best they could till it got away from us a little bit there, in the second half. So proud of the way the kids responded there after a couple of weeks ago and everything, when we lost to the rival and all that. So just really feel good about how hard they try and their the effort level.
Well, one thing about your team is obviously you would love to have Cole Chatfield back there because he's very accomplished and certainly a leader for this team, but you have a plenty of options to run the football even with him out. Guys like Hutter and Eicher and Jarrett Garn has been outstanding this season. So is it just a little bit more for each of those guys to potentially do individually?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what you always have to do. I mean, everyone has to really step up and elevate their role. And one thing that goes overlooked too is I thought our offensive line did a really good job of setting the pass protection there on Friday as well. And then when you have a kid like Garney, I think he's really coming into his own as being a playmaker right now. So he's always going to be a big part of the plan.
5-5 during the regular season, but it felt like just about every single game came down to the wire. You played in so many close games. Is that something that the players have embraced, knowing that they've been in close games, so it's not going to be uncharted territory if it happens again now in the postseason?
Well, yeah, I would think so because those games are really, it's just really competitive and like they're hard right up until the end. So I think that you absolutely have to be able to take some value from that and takeaway when you have those tight games. And we had quite a few of them. We came out on top of a couple of them. A couple of them we were on the other side of it. So I definitely think it was part of the learning process this season.
As I mentioned at the onset, you're the number 10 seed. It was really fascinating to see how the brackets played out this year with the wild cards being chosen by the committee. And then your conference in particular, outside of Elizabeth Forward, it was kind of a jumbled mess for the teams that got in. Greensburg-Salem ultimately qualified as a wild card out of your conference. So how did the 10 seed stack up and how did you evaluate the bracket as a whole?
Well, honestly, I'd be honest. I'm not one of the guys that really get into all the bracket stuff. I got some guys on staff that really like to do that. I just like to listen to what they say. But in the end, how they seat us and how they put you in, that's how it's going to be. So we're just happy to be in, and we're just focused on this Freeport team. So that's kind of been the plan since Friday.
And the Yellow Jackets, I mean, they're a good team, Freeport is, and
Oh
you're
yeah.
fairly familiar with them. I know you said you've gone against them quite a bit in recent years. So what do you expect from Freeport?
And again, knowing from playing them so much, they got a good staff up there. Those guys do a good job. Like, their kids, I know they're going to play hard. Their kids are going to play fast. They're going to be disciplined. They're going to do what they're coached to do. So I could tell you that before I even put the tape on this morning. You know what I mean? So we expect to have a really good team that's going to be ready to play on Friday.
It's kind of interesting. They wrap up their regular season against Amani Christian, which was the conference winner and the number 1 seed. You wrap up the regular season against your conference winner, the number 3 seed EF. Does playing a great team one week sometimes tend to carry over to the next week?
Well, boy, I hope so, especially this week. I hope that carries over a little bit. like you said, you always want to win those games, but like you're going to carry something away with your effort and maybe some of the points of the game where we're doing pretty well. So yeah, I like to think that you can kind of get some momentum going off of that. Then you throw in the excitement in the playoffs. I think it puts you in a pretty good spot.
You've gotten this program to the point where pretty much every year the Vikings are in the playoffs. So you personally know what to expect, even though it might be new for some of your players. They've been there for many of them as well. So what is key about having postseason success this year?
You know, Getting in is one thing, man, but you always want to try to get some wins and get on a run here. So, it's going to mean a lot if we can have a great week of practice. We can go out and execute what we want to do, really well on Friday. So I'm just looking forward to the chance that that we're going to be able to play a great game, take care of ourselves like we always try to do, and see if we can get some plays when we need them.
Well, Jason, we are looking forward to it as well on Friday night. Should be a great one. Thanks so much for taking the time, as always, to do this.
Yeah, sure thing, Sean. I appreciate it. Thanks.
That's Jason Fazekas, the head coach of Mount Pleasant.